What's going on? Talks Radio, Tevin West. That's where you're at. For those of you who are tuning in here on YouTube, welcome. I have a podcast that I run on Spotify and Apple called Talks Radio. And it has been, we are in our third season. We've done about 70 something episodes. And I've just been doing all audio up until this point. And so this is my first video that I'm making for the podcast, and I thought that I'd switch over to YouTube and start making podcast videos. I'll start uploading some of my audio podcasts later on, but I thought that I'd just introduce myself. I know that I usually do some kind of like jank streaming of like old video games like FIFA and FIFA 15 and FIFA 13 and NCAA 10 and 12 and but really what I am is a is a sports guy. I grew up playing soccer. I started playing soccer when I was 14 years old, but I've been around sports all my life, and I played college soccer and I played some professional indoor soccer, and now I have a career working for the Department of Defense. And now on my side time, I have a coaching business, and I also coach goalkeepers and a podcast. So I'm glad to be doing my video podcasting thing on YouTube. So I'll be leaving the link in the description for my podcast that's on Spotify, but you can check it out. But for these videos, I'll be going into a lot of detail about various topics, but a lot of it will be sports. And then I'll tie some life things into it. Also tie some biblical references in as well, because I am a man of God and I do believe on Jesus Christ. But I also like sports too, man. So, it doesn't have to be boring. So I like to give it a little bit of flavor. So today, what I wanted to talk about was the like how analytics have changed professional sports, and how it's changed them for the good and for the bad. And I'll be sure to list the pros and the cons of how it has affected sports, as well as the presence of social media, um, and how it has changed attitudes and behaviors uh, of the marketing of the professional teams and the individual athletes that play on those teams. And I'll be sure to add, like I said, I'll be sure to add examples, like concrete examples of real, individuals that are going through this right now. And I'll also tie it all together, while I'm explaining it with reference and context to biblical stories. So to start off, I just want to dive into, like I said, diving into a topic that's reshaped the world of professional sports, analytics and social media, and these two forces have revolutionized how games are games are played, how teams are marketed, and how athletes connect with fans. But like any powerful tool, they come with their own set of challenges, and we'll explore, like I said, the pros and the cons, and share some real world examples, and again tie it all together with a biblical story that still resonates today. Biblical stories. And so the first thing I want to talk about was the rise of analytics in sports. And I'll be referencing David Slingshot as well. And so, in many ways, the rise of analytics in sports is like the story of David and Goliath. You know, if anybody remembers that story from the Bible in the Old Testament and 1 Samuel, it's about um, David, who would be king of Israel, the second king of Israel, replacing King Saul. He would go up first against Goliath while he was nothing but a shepherd boy, and he went up against Goliath with his slingshot and his faith in God. Analytics have become the modern day slingshot for smaller teams and underdogs, trying to level the playing field in ways we've never ever seen before. So just as David used his slingshot to overcome Goliath's size and strength, analytics have allowed smaller budget teams to compete with the giants. For example, Oakland A's, and famously depicted in the movie Moneyball with Brad Pitt, use data to find undervalued players and compete against wealthier teams. They prove that you don't need the biggest budget to win. You just need the right strategy. And so analytics have given coaches and managers a new lens to make decision, improve decision making. In basketball, teams like the Houston Rockets have used data to optimize their shot selection, focusing on three-pointers and layups, which would be the most efficient shots. And this has revolutionized the game and led to record-breaking performances. Even, right down to like injury prevention, wearing certain technology that tracks data and makes it easier to monitor athletes' health. Teams like the NFL's Baltimore Ravens use GPS trackers and heart rate monitors to reduce the risk of overtraining and injuries. It's like having a shepherd watching over the flock to ensure that no one gets hurt. No one strays. If one strays away from the pack, we can come get him and bring him back into the fold. If somebody is lacking in their physical fitness, it can be taken care of right away. Even when I was in college, I played in NAIA, and that's adjacent to NCAA, but it can be just as competitive for some teams. And I know that hearing about stories, I had a teammate who came from Division I school playing Georgia Southern, but he had a teammate that had transferred from Clemson. And Clemson was always ahead of the curve in soccer, always has been, always will be. And he had and my friend asked him why he moved, and I can say their name because they're amazing to me. Like Solomon Lorenzano is one of the best players that ever come out of Georgia, and I got an opportunity to play with him at Middle Georgia State. And he transferred from Georgia State to try to help us win a national title in the NAIA. And we like to talk all the time. And I was like, he's like, this guy named Andy Anglade transferred from Clayton, to Georgia State. And when I asked him why did Andy Anglade transfer from Clemson, who's a powerhouse, to Georgia State to play soccer, it's kind of like a step down, even though they're both Division I. He said that he couldn't take the standard. It was like they had heart rate monitors that would basically tell the coaches how hard the players were working. And it was like they all had a certain target heart rate they had to be hitting and staying at during training. And if they weren't hitting it and staying in that target heart rate zone, they weren't working hard enough. And so Andy Anglade told Solomon Lorenzano that like he didn't want to go through that anymore. And so that's one of those things, personal preference. How do you see it? If I had an opportunity to be in something like that, I think I would have tried to see what it was like. But then again, I never was on a team that had GPS trackers and things of that nature. The best thing we did was they give us a fitness plan through the summer, and we work it, and you come back, there's fitness tests, and you run those fitness tests, and if you're not fit, you don't play until you finish the fitness test. Or if you do get to play, your ability to play would be in serious question because you have to be fit first. First thing is first. When you're an athlete, you need to be as fit as possible. So moving on. So we talked about the pros of analytics. We're going to move on to the cons. So one of the cons could be an over-reliance on data. Just as David's faith was his true strength, sports have always had a human element that can't be quantified. Some argue that analytics have taken the soul out of the game. For example, MLB pitchers are now often pulled from games based on pitch counts, even if they're performing well. It's like basically trusting the slingshot more than the person wielding it. You know, there'll be plenty of times that people will pull players because they're not hitting their numbers, they're not doing what they usually did, and they won't even give them a chance to rectify it, and they'll be pulled off because they feel like maybe it'll compound and a series of unfortunate events will happen where the performance of the player will drop, and so they want to switch gears, but not giving them a chance. It also depends on like who you are too. Like certain players don't get that long leash, and I think that analytics kind of add to that as well. You know, the analytics would say if there's a player that hasn't been playing as much, and when they do get in, they struggle, but they don't get as much playing time. When they get in and they don't start hitting it off right away, analytics would say you pull that person the first mistake they make. You know, we're not counting that person or their determination or their will. We're sitting here looking at, oh, they're making all these mistakes right here. Like, then stats say, like, you need to pull them and put the guy back on that's putting up the numbers. And so, like I said, trusting that slingshot more than you're trusting the person that's wielding it. And the head monetization of play, which is basically analytics leading to predictable strategies. In baseball, they focus on home runs and strikeouts, and that has made the game less dynamic because they're always going for it. They're always going for the thing that they know that is going to get them the best results. And it has made the game, like I said, less dynamic. Those little small parts, where shortstop does his work and things of that nature. Of course, that stuff happens in the game. Like, let me give you. I'm not a baseball guy, so let me give you a little bit different example. My example that I really can relate to. So similarly, like in soccer, some teams prioritize possession stats over creative play, which can make games less exciting for fans. It's like everyone is using the same slingshot and the game has lost its diversity again. So this is something that I can really talk to that is more than, you know what I mean? It's more than, like, I'm telling you, like, when it comes to possession, especially here in America with soccer, there are teams that will just live and die by going sideways and backwards, sideways and backwards. There's no, you get the shot at the top of the box and you take it. There is, you better recycle that thing, backwards to the side and work it around until they can just walk it into the goal. I swear. It was like, I remember the 2010 through 2013 like years, and it was basically when Barcelona and the Spanish national team had their dominance, and they were just killing people death by 1,000 cuts, just attrition, the war of attrition, just passing people to death, combination passes, link up play to death until you just automatically just one person's next to the goal, pass it off, tap in. And Americans are just not letting that go. I know that there's no creativity when it comes to soccer anymore. It's just recycle the ball, get it back. If you can't, there's no, because in the thing is like, even in the details, like, if you're not a player, you don't understand. I'm a goalkeeper. And so, like, I see and hear like stuff. Like, I would hear, like, if you took a shot, I know, like, and if you didn't make the shot, like, if you didn't put it on frame, like, teammates would be so pissed off at you. Like, what are you doing? Like, don't shoot that. Like, don't. And it's just like, it's a bunch of like systematicness and also selfishness. But like, then you have those players who are willing to take those chances, but like, they have that currency because most of the time when they shoot, it's on frame or it's going in goal. And so people like Cristiano Ronaldo, Eden Hazard, David Villa, Fernando Torres in his younger years, those guys kind of get the permission to go forward and shoot. But like, a person like like if you had maybe a Gattuso or uh, maybe a, let's see here, not Ricardo Montalivo. He's definitely got the license to shoot. Maybe a Fabio Cannavaro. Um, maybe a maybe a. I'm trying to think of a guy here real quick that really might not. Nigel De Jong. Like if you're that type of guy and you're shooting, they're like, no, don't do that. But you know, under circumstances, you never know. Like Gio Van Bronckhorst, I remember he had an opportunity to shoot in the World Cup and he scored from like 35 yards out. But he was a left back, and I don't think he ever scored for the Netherlands up until that time against Uruguay, and it sent the Dutch to the finals. And but if he had never took that chance, but most people from left back wouldn't get that chance anymore. Your job as a left back is basically left wing back. Blaze up the sideline, give a cross, come back. Maybe not even give a cross. You're gonna come down, come to the top of the line. If it's not there, come right back down, recycle it up. Because the thing is, they don't want to mess up possession, and they don't want to create a situation where it's a counterattack, coming back on you. But most teams aren't even sophisticated enough to do a counterattack. So why not take the chance? And so it's just a lot of situations in soccer where it's just recycle play, recycle play. You don't really have a number 10 anymore. The number 10, the playmaker, is like gone. Like they're all midfielders that connect the defense to the offense, and you got the 6 who is the defense, connect the defense to the offense, cover the back 4. You got the number 8 who plays side to side, and then you got an extra number 8 who does the same thing, and probably something like a 10 where he's feeding the striker. But really, sometimes you don't even have a striker. You just have people who are like all cohesive and moving the ball in unison from the back line to the midfield to that area where it's like at the top of the 18, and y'all gonna make the incision to break the line into the 6-yard box and walk it into the goal. And that's what it is. You know what I mean? There's not really positions anymore in soccer. It's positionless. It's gotten so, and I'm moving on. That was a big one for me. Even in basketball, the 2 point, the mid range shot is completely gone. You got some players like Kawhi Leonard and Devin Booker, and Kobe Bryant as well, who were mid range, are and were mid range kings. Tracy McGrady lived in the mid range, but that's not an efficient shot anymore. They want the 3 or they want the layup. You know what I mean? Something that's a sure thing. So the homogenization of play, which is like making everything in unison. So there's no dynamic players anymore. Everybody's cookie cutter. Everybody's a robot. Everybody does their role and sticks to it, and that's just the way it is. Crank out academy with soccer, definitely. Like I have a friend named Clayton Adams, and he played for Tormenta. He played for Tormenta in the USL League One. He also played for Austin Bolt in the USL Championship. And he said when they would play academy teams, like they play Atlanta United Academy, and they were all just robots. They get the ball, the goalkeeper get a ball to the right back up, look up, have his check down, midfielder come in for the ball. If he's not there, check down on the side, play him. Once they turn, they're checking their shoulders beforehand, and then they open up and they play sideways. They're not breaking any. They're not breaking any lines. They're not doing none of that. They're going sideways and kind of working it until they get up to the top to make the incision as a unison and walk the ball in. So also, you got pressure on players. Athletes are now. Are now. Athletes are constantly evaluated. Um, Athletes are constantly evaluated by advanced metrics, which can add immense pressure, and like a bad stat line can affect the trajectory of their career, even if their actual performance isn't as bad as the numbers suggest. It's it's as if David were solely judged on how many stones he carried rather than his courage and his skill. Like I said, like I was saying beforehand, if a player is known to kind of not get as much playing time, and then you finally put them in, and the first shot they take or the first pass they make is a bad pass or whatever, the analytics will say pull them out quickly because they're not gonna make the team better. But so it's not giving people an opportunity to gather momentum. It's kind of like creating a situation where people say you either got it or you don't. But it takes time for a person to develop. And even in football, like I'm a football guy too, quasi football guy. But you know, quarterbacks are like the most criticized. It's the most criticized position on the field. It's like being a goalkeeper. You're solely judged at the position of quarterback at how much you can produce, how many touchdowns can you throw, how many interceptions are you not throwing, how many games you won, how many championships you can win, not get to but win. And so they'll draft these quarterbacks first round, and in American sports they have the draft, and these teams are not. It's backwards in the USA when it comes to sports. You're not rewarded for how good you do. You're rewarded for bad behavior. So you got teams that are playing bad on purpose, and they're getting the first draft pick, second draft pick, or whatever. And so like these quarterbacks who are supposed to be high level quarterbacks, first, second, third pick in the first round, they're going to bad teams, and lo and behold, like what's going to happen? Do you think that player is going to? You think that quarterback's going to develop confidence and assuredness as a rookie to be able to perform at the highest of their ability when that organization is basically down in the dumps and won 3 games or 4 games last year and looking for basically a savior? You know what I mean? And so there's a lot of quarterbacks now. I know there's exceptions. There's exceptions to the rule. You got Jaden Daniels and guys like Joe Burrow, but even with that, it's a crapshoot because Joe Burrow is great, but like his team didn't even make the playoffs. Jaden Daniels did great in his rookie year, but it took some outside things happening for the Washington Commanders to come up, and it took changes in the front office, and it took ownership changes for that to happen. So things were already working in Jaden Daniels' favor to become an elite quarterback there in his first year without him. But like Bryce Young, he struggled not because he's a bad quarterback, but because the Carolina Panthers are an awful organization. Michael Penix Jr. got in. He's playing okay, but like the Atlanta Falcons are known to drop the ball from time to time. So who knows if they're going to give him a supporting cast, continue to build on that. You know what I mean? Just look at a guy like Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold was tossed around like a hot potato to three other teams. It was the Jets first, and he didn't. Lo and behold, he didn't play good at the Jets. I wonder, I wonder why. So the Jets were like, oh, he's bad. So they got rid of him, and they got another guy, and he didn't play well either. And then they ended up settling on a veteran, Aaron Rodgers, and he did well stat wise, but he his actual performance wasn't bad, but his the talent around him didn't allow him to do what he needed to do. The point I'm trying to make is it could take time. Like it took Sam Darnold 3 years, 4 years to get right. He went from the you know the Jets to the Panthers to the 49ers to the Vikings, and that was like 4 years. Well, in real life, like I work a career as a program manager. It took me 6 years to kind of like figure out what I was doing and really gain a confidence and start to work for it and have success in a job. That's how careers work. Most of the time you don't start off the bat like killing it, but analytics can make it in such a way where it puts pressure on players, who are getting paid millions of dollars to just perform like perfectly. And if you don't have the right support cast around you, it doesn't matter how good of a superstar you are. You know, you're not gonna always make a team. You know, people love to talk about Tom Brady and how he basically like ended up being like super good. He won Super Bowls with two different teams, but like they put the pieces around Tom Brady to make that work as well. And he also, you know, was able to fit inside those systems that he was in as well. And it's important that you understand that like players have to be able to fit inside that system as well. And a lot of things have to go right for that situation to work out very well. And depending on where they are, they might not have as good success depending on the coach, depending on the system they run, depending on how well they're treated, the supporting cast that's around them, whether their teammates respect them or not, whether, you know, that all that stuff matters in building momentum. You know what I mean? So the pressure on the players to perform based on the analytics is like insane. And one more thing I'll say, you know, analytics, and this is like big point right here. Analytics, the cons of analytics is that it can sway organizations and minds into groupthink that is detrimental to the growth of the organization. Prime example, the running back market was about a few years ago, so 3 years ago. It was basically, analytics said that the running back market was dead. What I mean by that, that means that there was talk based on analytics that you didn't need to invest large amounts of money into premier running backs anymore. You didn't need an Adrian Peterson anymore. You didn't need a Barry Sanders-esque type player. You didn't need a Tiki Barber, a Sean Alexander, or LaDainian Thomas. You didn't need that. Analytics said you can just plug and play, get you a running back, third, fourth round, or get you a running back on free agency that, you know, maybe had 600, 700, 800 yards, just about 1,000, maybe not as consistent, but you could just plug and play any running back that was capable. So they were underpaying running backs or just not paying them. So a few teams were idiots and let their running backs go. Two teams in particular I remember were the Las Vegas Raiders, who got rid of Josh Jacobs, and the New York Giants, who got rid of Saquon Barkley, willingly let him go to the Philadelphia Eagles. And so what happened? Before that even happened, the Carolina Panthers let go of Christian McCaffrey. And that next year, what happened? The offensive MVP ended up being Christian McCaffrey, a running back. The year that they were saying running backs were obsolete and you could just plug and play. Christian McCaffrey ended up being the offensive player of the year and leading his team, the San Francisco 49ers, to a Super Bowl. Okay? And he performed. They would have won it if Dre Greenlaw hadn't got hurt, because he can cover receivers as a linebacker. The point I'm trying to make is, and then the next year, which was this year, Christian McCaffrey was hurt, but and it affected, not only was he hurt, but it affected the San Francisco 49ers from making the playoffs, because Christian McCaffrey is not just a running back. He's also a slot receiver, okay? He's just a dynamic. Marshawn Lynch calls him a snow bunny pearl. Says he be doing hella stuff in the backfield. That's exactly what he does. He does everything. He's a Swiss Army knife of a player. In his position, officially just happens to be running back. And it affected the San Francisco 49ers' ability to qualify for the postseason. And that was detrimental. He was hurt. But what took his place? Saquon Barkley took his place. Saquon Barkley was freely let go by the New York Giants to the Philadelphia Eagles. They replaced him with Singletary, who's not a bad running back, but he's not Saquon Barkley. And they pretty much ended up having him get hurt. Singletary got hurt, and he had to, they pretty much tried to plug and play with other running backs. And what did Saquon Barkley do? Saquon Barkley ended up rushing for 2,000 yards. It's only like 9 or 8 players to ever do that. Could have broke the record, but he decided not to because he wanted to save himself for the playoffs and get to the Super Bowl. And he ended up having a monster postseason as well and got to the Super Bowl and won it. And probably would have won MVP if MVP voting wasn't so biased. But we'll talk about that in another episode. But what I'm saying is, before I move on to this next segment, analytics, the cons of analytics, they're great, but the cons of analytics can be that it puts things in this cookie cutter fashion, and it doesn't play into the fact that you still have the human will and determination of certain players that might have a chip on their shoulder. Just before I move on, just look at Tua Tagovailoa. You know, the analytics said in Josh McDaniels is like a spreadsheet guru. That's all he did at San Francisco before he became a head coach at Miami. Spreadsheet genius. So his spreadsheet had him, you get this weapon, you get Tyreek Hill, you already got Jalen Waddle, you get a B plus tight end from Jonnu Smith, lock him down, decent offensive line, get some decent players on defense, Jalen Ramsey, Bradley Chubb, the whole nine. Got you a nice return specialist in Braxton Berrios. You're good. Quarterback that can throw. Tua Tagovailoa, more than capable. He forgot this one little tidbit though. The analytics, it covers the surface, but it doesn't cover the undercutting, which means you needed a competent backup quarterback. And because they did not invest in they're thinking about it. Analytics helps you think about the possibility on the surface, but it doesn't go deep enough. I know it's crazy. It's analytics, it's stats. It's supposed to go deep enough, but it doesn't. It only covers the surface level of things. It doesn't count for, do we need a backup quarterback? Because the analytics are looking at the stats, the good stats. The analytics aren't looking at the bad stats. Anytime the analytics look at the bad stats, it's saying throw it away. Whatever is not serving you, throw it away. Well, it doesn't take into account that you need substitutions. It only takes into account the good that you need, the surplus. The surplus. If you're a good coach, not saying he's not, but if you're really like a coach with that mindset, right? You understand that like your team is only as good as your bench. So you need a good backup quarterback. Bill Belichick knew that. That's why he had two backup quarterbacks. When that year that Tom Brady got hurt and Jimmy Garoppolo and Jacoby Brissett were able to step in. That's not analytics. That's just common sense coaching right there. Anyway, something to bite on. So the second part of this is the social media impact on sports. And I'm tying it in with the Tower of Babel. So let's talk about social media. And if the analytics are David Slingshot, then social media is the Tower of Babel, which is a powerful tool that connects people, but also creates confusion and division. Platforms like Twitter, Instagram, TikTok have transformed how fans interact with teams and athletes, but this shift hasn't been without its challenges. So the pros of social media would be direct fan engagement, right? I'm trying to keep my voice low because my son is sleeping in the room next to me. So direct fan engagement in social media allows the player to directly connect with fans by passing traditional media. LeBron James, for example, uses Twitter and Instagram to share his thoughts and promote his projects and even announce career moves. It's building a direct bridge to people, just as the Tower of Babel was meant to reach the heavens. It's also a marketing powerhouse, and teams and leagues have embraced social media to grow their fan bases. The NBA, for example, has become a global phenomenon thanks to the savvy use of platforms like Twitter and or X and YouTube, where highlights go viral instantly, and it's a modern day megaphone amplifying the game to every corner of the world. Yeah, so it's just like House of Highlights. I always see it on Instagram, and it's like the House of Highlights is like it'll be posting Lamelo Ball all the time, or Victor Wembanyama when the teams that they play on are abysmal. You know, I don't even follow basketball like that, but I looked at the records of those people. I was like, dude, they're awful. They're awful. But you would never know that by the way that the House of Highlights is posting that individual person. So it's a marketing. It's like fans are engaging in those specific players, even though the team is like awful. So you got people who are just fans of. You ever heard of that person who's like, I'm a LeBron fan. Wherever LeBron goes, I like him. I'm a Jimmy Butler fan. Wherever he goes, I like him. You know, I gotta move my computer over because my son is hearing me and he's not going to sleep. Give me a second. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Here we go. So, teams, they have embraced social media, growing a fan base, and it's not necessarily about, it's not always about winning. It's just about how can we market our team so that we can put butts in seats. And if there's one person who is just gonna tear the house down, and put those butts in the seats while we're not having good years, they'll do that. They'll absolutely draft a guy who's just sensational, like a LaMelo Ball or a Victor Wembanyama to build the future around. But if they don't win, that's okay because they're making their dividends every year just by sheer ticket sales. You know what I mean? And merch. And so it's just, the marketing from social media is just a giant megaphone. Um, and so also like monetization opportunities is where athletes can basically earn millions of dollars through sponsorship posts and partnerships. Cristiano Ronaldo is one of the world's most followed people on Instagram, and he reportedly earns over 1 million per sponsor post. So it's like turning the Tower of Babel into a marketplace of ideas and opportunities. There's a lot of players that are more concerned with their brand deals than they are with their actual performance on the field. And while it might not affect them at first, over time, if they pay attention more to the 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 things, the sponsorships and stuff, it could affect their play. One of the first people I seen really getting down to it and it affected their play was Juju Smith-Schuster. Juju Smith-Schuster was like one of the first athletes I seen on TikTok really getting the TikTok money. But because of that, he kind of like fell off and it turned him into like an average player. Now he's still playing NFL football and he was in the Super Bowl just last Sunday, so it really doesn't matter what I think. But I think his play suffered for that. Jesse Lingard, same type of deal. You know, his he was more concerned with Millie rocking than scoring goals at a certain point. So his play kind of dipped, and he doesn't even play for the national team, the English national team anymore. So the cons of social media would be the negative attention. And social media can be a double-edged sword. Athletes are often subjected to harsh criticism, hate comments, and even threats. Simone Biles, for example, spoke openly about the toll that online negativity took on her mental health during the Tokyo Olympics, as if the Tower of Babel's collapse brought down. It's as if the Tower of Babel's collapse brought down a flood of negativity. And yeah, I mean, I think a lot of athletes have to face very, very harsh criticism. Not just athletes, but celebrities as a whole. You know, online wise, you can reach out and touch anybody, and it doesn't matter if they respond or not. It's just the fact that like you can put something out there and that athlete can see it, and that person that is of influence can see it, and it does affect him. And it does hurt. A lot of um, I know a lot of people nowadays kind of don't really respect the athlete in their personal space. You know what I mean? Like it's just like it can get real disrespectful online, basically. And man, I've seen some really, really nasty stuff. And you know, especially with like the Ronaldo and Messi debates and Jordan and LeBron, like people are out here saying like it's so crazy because like these are the top tier athletes, and people be like they're mid or they suck, and I'm just like, dude, just because they're in the opposite camp, and I'm just like, that's ridiculous. Like those players don't suck. You're just like being irrational. So the negative attention, you know, if a player doesn't perform to the highest of their ability, and somebody betted on them, you know, like they'll be like, oh, they messed up my parlays. They effed up my parlay. You know what I mean? And then in real life, you know, that stuff spills over to real life, and it's like this guy might meet KD in real life, and he'd be like, man, you messed up my parlay. And it's just like, dude, why you? What's wrong with you? That's the first thing you say to KD. So, distractions and controversies. Social media can be a distraction for athletes in 2018. For example, Antonio Brown famously live streamed a locker room speech by his coach Mike Tomlin, causing a major controversy. Moments like these can disrupt the team dynamics and create unnecessary drama. It's like the confusion that followed the tower's collapse when God spread the confused the languages and spread everybody. Everyone's speaking a different language, unable to communicate effectively. Yeah, I mean, people are talking online, but if you don't speak their language online, like it gets lost in translation. Or, you know, you should see the comment section is like war for any post that's relevant. You know, it's like any sports post, like people will just get online and be like, it'll be people that don't even have like a profile pic and they'll be the main ones, like saying some crazy stuff. And then like you might chime in to like defend or whatever. And it's just like they'll say some stuff just to try to disrespect you. It's like crazy or it's just awful. And then, like I said, you know, you got players who will head straight to their phone after a game. You know what I mean? I, I saw this picture of people, team, the Argentinian national team, after a game. Everybody's face was head down in the phone, you know, trying to post their pictures or whatever, and trying to post their pictures online and get the clout and stuff like that. Because it's all about the image on social media as well. You know, they're trying to get. You only have a certain amount of years to be a professional athlete, so they're all trying to get the bag and the clout as much as they can. You know what I mean? That attention is a hell of a drug. So pressure, like it's pressure to maintain an image. Athletes now feel the compelled to curate their online personas, which can be exhausting. The pressure to post constantly and maintain a perfect image can take toll on their mental health. It's as if they're constantly building their own towers, trying to reach an impossible standard. I don't know if they're trying to. I don't know if a lot of people online that are professional athletes that have a social media are trying to be perfect. If anything, I think they're trying to, in a way, a lot of them are trying to promote like the most lavish. They're trying to. Their life is a movie, basically. You know what I mean? I mean, I just don't buy it. You know what I mean? I don't buy the clean cut image. A lot of people like a lot of everybody's not trying to have a clean cut image as a professional. You know what I mean? If anything, like a lot of these guys, we walk around like they're rock stars. Tattoos all over the place, various piercings, painting nail polish on their fingers. Like, I don't think anybody's trying to hide anything. I think they're just trying to be as free as they can possibly be. Because, when you finally come into some money, a lot of people feel like you can be who you want to be once you finally have money in your pocket. I feel like a lot of people restrict themselves at first and they try to play it clean cut and stuff when they don't have the money and they don't have the success. But once they do have the money and the success, the real version of that person comes out. You know what I mean? For example, Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown was pretty normal until he started making a bunch of money and started making a bunch of plays in the field. And some people say it's a CTE that he got hit by Vontez Burfict that one time and just went, you know, he, the flip switch. But really, I think it's just the money and the success as well. I mean, it could be he got hit really hard, but also like money can change a person. You know what I mean? Money will and can change a person for better or for worse. And so I don't feel like people are trying to keep up an image. If anything, once they start getting money, they start kind of breaking the image of who they were if they had some like modest posts. You know what I'm saying? But they, like once they made the money, they started flexing with the chains and the diamonds and the, you know, post with this girl, picture with this person, the picture, So for me, everybody trying to flex and have clout. And a lot of people do anything to get the clout, you know what I mean? So pressure to maintain an image, yeah, but what kind of image? You know what I mean? What kind of image? Because, even like chicks, sports, chicks, they'll post a picture, with them shorts, they pushed all the way up to where you can see the butt cheek line. You know what I mean? But it just depends. So the intersection of analytics and social media, and this has to deal with the wisdom of Solomon. So interesting analytics and social media are now intersecting in fascinating ways. Teams are now using data to understand fan behavior and tailor their marketing strategies. For example, the NFL uses social media analytics to determine which highlights to promote and which players to feature in ads. But this intersection also raises ethical questions. Should teams monitor their players' social media activity? Should athletes be judged by their engagement metrics as much as their on-field performance? These questions are these are questions that the sports world is still grappling with. Yeah, I know, just on like a small level before a lot of this stuff really popped off. I remember, and I don't know if they still do it or not, but they were in club soccer, youth soccer, so grassroots soccer, travel soccer. They were, I don't know if they still do this or not, but they were ranking players based on like what club they played on. They were giving them like stars and stuff. Like, okay, like, oh, this player is ranked this way because of the stars and the the the, the reputation that they have, and they could be also like added because of like their with the NIL money not just flowing through college but flowing in high school too. A lot of these people, if they have a social media following, these kids, if they have a social media following, that definitely adds to what they can be given in terms of incentives. Don't let that pass you by. Definitely, if these kids have a following on YouTube or social media or something like that. Stuff like that. One person in particular I know for sure destroying, um, destroying. I think his real name is Donald. He is a kicker for the San Antonio Brahmas, or was, but I think he hurt his back or something like that, and had to stop playing for the season last year, because UFL ball is in the spring, and he definitely he definitely got an opportunity to play kicker in the UFL because he had a social media following, and he chose to forego kicking in college because his social media was growing so fast, and that was before NIL money was allowed. The whole name, image, and likeness thing was allowed in college, and so he definitely got an opportunity to play because of who he was. And I mean, his videos show him kicking footballs as well, so that just also helps. But yeah, I definitely think it's kind of like sort of like earned nepotism, I guess, because you built the following up, so like it kind of goes along with you or whatever. Um, Tim Tebow got an opportunity to go back and try to play tight end go to play in the NFL again as a tight end because of his following. You know what I mean? His following as a person, as a player, and so he got another opportunity because people wanted to see it. People wanted to see how he would do, and because it was filmed and it was plastered all over social media that he couldn't block as a tight end, that also played a part in him not getting an opportunity to work it out in that position. You know what I mean? I'm digging deep here, but think about it. People will build you up and they'll break you down. So they're like, "Oh, we want to see Tebow play tight end," but like the first time he doesn't pull the block he's supposed to pull, it is plastered all over social media, and it's so bad that like the team is just like, yo, we see this everywhere and it looks so bad, even though it's probably not that bad. Like if he got a few blocking sessions in and maybe got a little bit more strength, he's already strong, could have added more strength, he probably wouldn't have been cut. But because it was plastered all over the place, man, look how much he can't block. Just one play, he got cut immediately. Immediately. That's what analytics will do for you. It will cut you the moment you do something bad. In social media, it will do something you can't get that. You know what I mean? It was just like, or if a quarterback is playing bad, if social media wasn't around and Tim Tebow didn't make a good block, he probably would have gotten another chance. But because it was plastered all over the place, he got cut immediately. They didn't want it was an embarrassment. If a player is playing bad, like a quarterback or whatever, they might call for his benching. You know what I mean? The noise of the fan base might get so loud that it might echo so loud, um, you know, electronically that like they the organization hears it and they're like, okay, we got to make a change. Although they probably didn't need to make a change. All they had to do is kind of stick it out. But it's like, oh, he sucks, he sucks, he sucks. Like, you know, it can cause players to shift. Carson Beck was a quarterback for the University of Georgia, and I'm gonna tell you something. Georgia fans are brutal. Georgia fans are the most insufferable fans. Georgia sports fans are the most insufferable. They're impossible. They're unappeasable. They're hard to please. And I'm from Georgia. I live in Georgia. I'm a New York Giants fan. I'm a New York Giants. I am not a Georgia sports fan at all. I'm a Oklahoma City Thunder fan basketball. I'm a West Virginia Mountaineer in college. But anyway, that's not the point. Point is, you know, He was like, they got Matt Ryan like kicked out of Atlanta, and Matt Ryan was like an elite quarterback for a long time, but like he was not performing for like one season, and they were like, "Oh, he sucks, he sucks, he sucks," and they were like, "We gotta bench you and send you on your way." As time was up, but Carson Beck, they just he got them to the playoffs. You know, he got them to the first ever 12-team playoff in college football, and like, "Oh, he sucks, he sucks, he sucks," and like he ended up his season ended up being halted because he had a elbow or shoulder injury or something like that. And because he was injured, Georgia probably didn't have the ability to move the ball down the field aerially, and they got kicked. They got beat by Notre Dame, and the abuse that this guy took online was so bad that he was just like, "I'm transferring to another school." Now, there's probably other reasons that played into him transferring as well as like money, but it didn't help that like the online community and social media for you for University of Georgia was like, "You suck, you suck. We need a better quarterback." When in fact, like that's one of your better quarterbacks that you've had. Like he's in that conversation with like Matthew Stafford and Jake Fromm and all that because like he helped you guys keep winning. You know, it's not too many quarterbacks that came from Georgia that be winning like that for real, for real. So it can play a big part. You know, in many ways, like this reminds me of King Solomon, who was known for his wisdom, and Solomon understood the importance of balance, right? Using knowledge and power responsibly. As we navigate this new landscape, we'll need the same wisdom to ensure these analytics and social media are used for good and not for harm. So I want to talk about the future of sports, which will be a new covenant. So where do we go from here? Analytics and social media are here to stay, obviously, but their impact will continue to evolve. And here are a few predictions from me. One, you'll have more personalized fan experience. So teams will use data to create hyper-personalized content for fans, from customized highlight reels to targeted merchandise offers. That's already happening right now. You know what I mean? Ethical challenges as analytics and social media become more pervasive. Leagues will need to establish guidelines to protect players' privacy and mental health. I mean, I'm just throwing that out there in the future, but really, like, to be honest, like, mental health is the last thing professional teams are worried about. Mental health is like the last thing that professional teams are worried about for players. They're not trying to protect the player's privacy or mental health. They'll be the main one to leak, like, a player's issues if the player is, kind of like stepping wrong with the organization. For example, Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, I think he like either wanted to trade or more money. I'm not sure. Out of Houston because he was doing good and Houston was bad because they were just laying everything on him. Just talking about playing wise, okay? But what they do, they ended up like leaking his dirty laundry about him allegedly having issues, sexual conquests in massage parlors. They're quick to tear you down, man. So don't cross it. Like, I don't think when it comes to ethical challenges, I don't think that analytics. I don't think that teams are gonna establish any guidelines to protect players' privacy and mental health. Uh, Actually, I think it's just gonna get worse. If I think it's gonna because here's the deal: a player is nothing more than a rich slave. And I know this because I was at the bottom of this totem pole when it came to playing professional indoor soccer. So, like, we weren't making good money at all, and we were slaving. We'd be training like 4 hours, like three days a week in a gym, destroying our bodies. I'm diving as a goalkeeper on hardwood floor. Nobody cares. And then turn around, play 26 games in a 6-month season on AstroTurf that's laid on top of halfway melted ice because we shared the Civic Center in Columbus, Georgia, with the the River Dragons, the Columbus River Dragons, the hockey team. And so um, they don't. I mean, we were slaves. We were poor slaves. These professional athletes who made the top of the top, cream of the crop, they're slaves too. They're just rich slaves, and you better believe that they are going to use, just like how an employer uses an employee who works at a desk job or a trade. If you don't own that joint, like, you are at the mercy of the employer, and they're going to do everything to exploit you, to use you for labor so they can make more money. They can turn more profit. And if that means manipulating or using the situation to their advantage that they know about for you, they'll do it. They'll do it to keep you under their grip, to keep you in chains. If they could put you in chains physically, they would. They just can't do that anymore. Also, new opportunities for athletes. The rise of platforms like TikTok, Red Note, Twitch, Rumble, X will give athletes even more ways to build their brand and connect with their fans, which is already happening, but I see it happening more and more in the future. Um, my advice for professional athletes is always get the bag. Always. Always. A lot of these athletes are retiring early because they made more money, or they made enough money. They went to their accountant after playing for 5 or 6 years, and they said, "Hey, I've made this much money off of sports, and I've made this much money off of brand deals and endorsements, and I'm gonna have this much money for brand deals and endorsements because I've all, like, once you are in that, you're in it. It can be difficult to get in there, but once you're in it, you're in it. So they're gonna keep, because that face card, and then their CPA tells them you're good. You don't, with the money coming in and the investments you set up and the brand deals you got, you don't have to play sports another day of your life. Now, a lot of these people, they dreamed of playing sports when they were a kid, but when they get in the business side of it and the physical demands of it day to day, you got to eat right, you got to live right, you got to do certain things every single day, and you might get 2 weeks off in the off season. Back to the bricks. That wears on you. That grind wears on you. Okay, that grind for working out weekly and daily wears on a person who's just like not playing professional sports and just out here just trying to maintain. So imagine an athlete who has to stay in the gym for 2 hours, who has to eat. You can't eat that cookie because if you come in weighing a kilo over, they charge you $800 per kilo, for every pound that you're over the weight you're supposed to be. They're charging you. So people get tired of that. So it's a trade-off. So they're saying, hey, I got this opportunity, got this platform. Athletes that retire, they might have not ended up whatever they didn't end up getting in their career. They're gonna get it on the back end because they're gonna make a podcast or some type of social media platform they're gonna do, and it's gonna make them whole. So I see that coming more and more. You know what I mean? Get your bag, athlete. So ultimately, the key will be finding balance. Just as David trusted his slingshot but relied on his own faith, just as Solomon used his wisdom to lead with integrity, the sports world must use analytics and social media responsibly. It's about creating a new covenant, a promise to use these tools and enhance the game, not exploit it. So, thanks for tuning in to Talks Radio. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts on analytics and social media and how it's changed sports. Do you think that it's been more good or bad? Do you think it's been more good, more bad, or vice versa? Until next time, I want you to keep waking your game up. That's good. All right, Spin Talks Radio. Have a good night.